voice of women in sport.
Hello, I'm Abby Ehler, and this is the Sailing Show on Wisp Sports Radio. 3, 2, 1, and on! The Sailing Show is a co-production between the Magenta Project and Wisp Sports, where we believe that women in sport deserve greater coverage. I'm joined today by sailor Joan Molloy, who has just returned from competing in the Solitaire URGO, a single-handed, multi-stage race in a one-design boat. A total of 36 competitors, of which 5 were women and 8 rookies. And Joan was the first Irish woman to compete in La Solitaire. So Joan, thank you very much for joining us today, having recently returned from your accomplishments. The Solitaire, I mean, the competition is fierce. It's intense racing and all of this, and you're on your own. I mean, talk us through how it felt to get to that start line and getting into stage 1.
Yeah, well, thanks very much for having me, for inviting me. I'm absolutely honoured to talk to you. Yeah, like you said, I suppose the Solitaire, people have been like, what was the race like? And for me, the race started, probably about 3 years ago. It was the focus of my life for the last couple of years, just getting to the start line. And the last year particularly, it was around this time, around August 2017, when I launched my own solo sailing campaign. So really the focus of the year was to get to the start line. And it's only once you really kind of turn up in Le Havre, which is the start port, that you start to think like, oh gosh, yeah, I should really start thinking about how I want to perform in this race. So for me, I was the first Irish woman to do the race, so we had a lot of work to do in terms of Ireland, in terms of kind of warming it up, getting sponsors. Sailing sponsorship isn't a massive thing in Ireland. It's happened before, but that was, I think that was probably one of our proudest moments this year, was to get a really strong Irish sponsor. And I got the Irish Seafood Development Agency on board as my sponsor. So in terms of getting to the race, that was really the major step that allowed us to be there.
Starting out on stage 1, I mean, it must have been, I guess, just a great feeling to be out there. I would imagine with most of your training, a lot of it is done on your own. So you might have 1 or 2 training partners to line up against, but all of a sudden to get to the start line and there's 36 boats. How did that go?
Yeah, the start was absolutely hectic. The first leg was, we were going north from the Havre across the English Channel to a mark just off the Isle of Wight, and the forecast was for 40 knots during the day. So we started in about 25 knots, and kind of basically a few miles outside Le Havre, the wind was pretty quickly up to 30, 35 knots. And so we were reaching with the spinnakers up in 35 knots. So low, first leg of the Solitaire. So I kind of didn't really think about much else apart from trying to avoid not nosediving and broaching. I was really focused on the racing, but definitely the anticipation of knowing the forecast, knowing the course, and knowing, like you said, what a big fleet I was going to be lining up against. That I was pretty nervous before I left the dock in France for that first leg. I was pretty nervous, basically. I was nervous because it was a pretty big forecast, and I was nervous because it's very hard. Like you say, in our training group in France, we had quite a few people out. You might be lining up against 6 or 7 boats, but still nothing can prepare you for that big start line. And the pressure, the nerves, and I think because I was a rookie, as in that means it was my first Solitaire, I was extra nervous, but I know that the guys who've done it, 5, 10, 15 times, they still feel nerves at the start too, because for them it's everybody does the start of a sailing race. I think no matter how experienced you are, you're nervous, and you have anticipation of what's to come and how you're gonna perform against the people around you.
Yeah, I mean, I take my hat off to you for the solo sailing. It's just a completely different game to team sailing, where you've always, there are always sets of eyes on deck. You were always kind of pushing the boat 100%. But I think the thing that I would find difficult, and I'm not sure how you managed it, is going to be down to sleep or to eat and sort of going below deck. And especially on that leg one, I mean, it was a fairly monstrous leg. How did you manage your sleep and your eating? I mean, knowing that you want to push the boat as much as you can all the time, but you obviously have to manage yourself to get some sleep and look after yourself physically. So how did you go on stage one with all that?
Like you say, it is really important, and solo sailors are no different. We want to try and keep the boat pressed at 100% all the time as well. And for us, for me, I suppose what I did when it was very windy was I kind of would set myself up that, right, I'm just not going to leave the deck for the next 9 hours or whatever. This is it. This is me. So you just put loads of clothes on, and I filled my pockets on the deck with food and water. Had the bucket up on deck so I could go to the toilet, and you just prepare yourself mentally to say okay, this next 8 hours is crucial, so I'm not going to go anywhere. This is me. You just settle into that idea. And then you have your targets, whether it's other boats or boat speed or whatever, or your percentage polars, and you're kind of working towards that all the time.
Okay.
But if you have a long leg that, for example, in leg 3, we were going across the Bay of Biscay, so we were about 24 hours in probably, between 20 and 40 knots of wind with the spinnaker up and quite big waves. So you can't just stay on the deck awake for 24 hours. So then my strategy for making sure the boat was going a maximum was, I'd mainly steer the boat as much as I could and have the spinnaker on a winch beside me and just, kind of trim and steer like you would on a crude boat as much as possible. But then before I went down to sleep, what I'd do is I'd, kind of adjust my trim slightly to make the boat a bit easier to steer for the pilot, and then I put the pilot on and I'd just sit there for 5 or 10 minutes and just check that the pilot was coping okay and keeping the speed up and keeping the percentage polars up. And once I was happy that was happening, I'd pop downstairs for 10 or 15 minutes sleep and then come back up again, steer for a bit, check my track and check that my performance hadn't dipped too much while I was asleep. So that's kind of how I did it anyway.
Yeah.
I'm, like I said, my first year, so there's other guys who maybe have better other techniques and they can probably just press their on and their pilot and they know it's perfect. But because I was still learning all those settings, I would say and watch it steer for a bit. And you do have a couple of tricky moments, when you're asleep downstairs and a massive gust comes and you're just lying on the floor with your fingers crossed, please cope with this, pilot, you can do it.
It's definitely challenging.
It's definitely another skill, yeah.
And you touched there on having a plan, and obviously you set off, with a plan for the leg based on your weather and routing and so forth. Stage 2, things didn't go so well for you at the beginning. I mean, you suffered a breakage just before the start, I believe, of your main halyard. I mean, that must have been so disappointing to have built yourself up for a start only to have to go in, fix it, and then you came back out to complete the stage but on a massive catch up and I guess a little bit on your own and just really sailing your own course to try and catch up to the fleet. I mean, how did that feel?
Yeah, it was totally grim. The first leg, I think it was funny after the first leg, because I'd had such a nervous anticipation of the first leg, I kind of forgot that I would enjoy it, and I actually loved that first leg. Once I was out there, I was like, this is so brilliant. I just loved it. And I got in for the first leg, and I was like, I loved that. That was brilliant. I'm knackered, I haven't slept for 3 days, but I really enjoyed it. So for leg 2, I was really looking forward to it, and I was kind of taking some confidence from the first leg and thinking, right, this is great, I could build on that. I had some good boats out there, I was close to people the whole time, I can improve on that. And so I was really looking forward to the second leg. So yeah, my main halyard, where my main halyard attached to the sail just broke like 4 seconds before the start. I was just absolutely crushed because I was just, like first you're like, how am I going to fix this? I'm going to have to climb the mast to the top with no rope and try and rethread it, and then the halyard was stuck, and in the end I made the decision. Luckily I was in a place in a race where you're still within the rules to go back into port and get help, so I did that and then came back out, but I was 3 hours behind everybody. I suppose that it was just what I tried to do then is when it happened, I was just like, I was really upset and crying and angry and all those emotions. And then I had to motor in to the pontoon where my preparator was waiting to replace the halyard. And on the motor in, I was like, okay, I've got half an hour and I can be up there and I can cry and I can like scream and shout and hit things for this half an hour. But once I arrive on the pontoon, that stops and the new halyard comes on. I don't download new weather, but I rerun all my routing for my new departure time. I see what it says, and then that's it. The race restarts for me, and I just have to give it absolutely everything tonight to catch the fleet. I just knew that I had to catch the fleet before they left to go across the Bay of Biscay. Otherwise, I'd be like just out in the Bay of Biscay chilling by myself for 2 days, and I wasn't really up for that. I wanted to be near boats so that I would keep pushing the whole way across the Bay of Biscay. So that once I left again, once we made the repair and left again, it was just kind of like, just in my head, I was like, I can do it. I just have to catch them. Just have to grind down the gap. The gap started at 18 miles. And then it was like 14 miles, 12 miles, and just slowly, I managed to move the fleet back in. And in the end, I only caught like 3 boats, but I was pretty happy.
Yeah.
I finished in a little match race with 2 other boats, and there was 2 boats behind us. So
I think it was amazing.
It was really tough 24 hours.
Yeah. But amazing almost to have that mindset, to turn it around, to turn a bad thing into a mission, and to see the positives and almost to have the fleet in front of you. It gives you more willpower to try and catch them. And as you said, to have overtaken a few, it makes it even more kind of a result than having to fight for what you did. I was going to move.
Yeah, exactly. It's still disappointing, but it was, it was a good lesson in what I can do, and a good lesson. Like, I did have some advantages coming up behind the fleet. I could see what worked for people and what didn't, and I used that to my advantage as much as I could, and just tried to squeeze everything I could out of every little gust and little bay and eddy and everything. So I did have a couple of advantages, but yeah, I wouldn't recommend it.
Before you started out on your sailing yourself in this event, you had worked a lot as a boat captain for both the Artemis Academy and Fourth Cape. So you were the preparator, as boat captains, looking after the boats and making sure that they were race ready, in top notch. Do you think that's really set you up well to be able to fix stuff and to look after your boat?
Yeah, I think it has, and even, sometimes I say that I think one thing it's helped give me is just the confidence that I will find a solution. It's not that I will know the solution straight away. I'm not an expert of every single part of the boat. I know them very well, but it just has given me the confidence that if something breaks at sea, it's not a panic, it's just a problem and I just need to find a way to fix it. It's not. And I have the confidence that I've fixed so much stuff in those boats, then the chances are I will have seen that happen before, or seen something like it happen before. So I definitely, for me, that was a really valuable learning experience to do that. And I think it not just in terms of learning the technicalities of the boat, but actually because I was working so closely with the skippers on the boats, I learned what they went through as well and what they experienced, and that really did help prepare me I think, nothing can fully prepare you. It's really hard and it's really tough, and nothing can fully prepare you. But just hearing what they say and hearing their experiences made me, when the going is really tough, you remember stories that other skippers have told you about how tough it felt or how hard it felt, and you're like, okay, I think this is normal. I think probably other people are feeling this too, so just get on with it. And I think without that experience, it would have been a bit harder to deal with those really tough times.
Yeah, indeed. And I think that's one thing with offshore sailing is it is imperative to have secondary skills beyond sailing itself. It just arms you so much better for, as you said, when things do go wrong, you certainly feel like you're in a position to do something rather than, feeling that you're incapable. So I think that's, something that's important.
Because a lot of it is just your attitude to the problem is half the solution, So.
Yeah, and as you said, the experience, just knowing what sort of things might go wrong, and having a kind of a plan should things go wrong. So it's huge in terms of offshore sailing, having that skill set and experience. You mentioned Ellen MacArthur as one of your role models, having read one of her books, and you mentioned that she was a woman, she was petite, and that you said to yourself, well, if she can do it, then possibly so can I. I mean, how important do you think it is to have someone like Ellen MacArthur as a role model in our sport?
Yeah, I think it's really important, and it's interesting because Ellen was a massive inspiration for me, and I think a whole generation of sailors, to be honest, has been inspired by Ellen MacArthur, and male and female. But also there's other people, sometimes if I see, for example, an Irish sailor go off and do something, I get inspiration from that. I'm like, well, they've kind of from the same background as me. Why, if they could do it, why can't I? But I think in the context of women in sailing and particularly offshore sailing, seeing other women achieve their goals or go out and do stuff like the Vendee Globe or the Volvo Race or the Solitaire, I think that's really important for women who are unsure if they can do it, or unsure if it's for them or if there's space for them on that platform. I think it's very important.
Indeed, and I think it is. It's important to have that that someone that's been there and done it before, almost, to be able to say, well, like you said, if she can do it, then why can't I? And I think Wendy Took, the skipper of the Clipboat, has recently said something along those same lines. If a little girl sees me, and she thinks she can do it, then hopefully she'll be inspired. So it is important, and it's great that you're out there and being a role model to others, hopefully.
Yeah, I hope so. And I suppose from my point of view as well, I don't have any sparkling sailing background. I've just been grinding away at offshore sailing for the last couple of years, but I haven't got any Olympic medals or World Championship titles or anything. I just have come at it and decided I want to do it. I've just done everything I can to build my skill set so that I know how to do it, and then just gone for it, So hopefully that inspires people as well, just to know that if you have a goal or an objective that you really want to do, then if you the two things you need to do are just keep that goal absolutely clear, focused in your mind, and then work hard and you'll get there. And that's basically what I did. I wanted to do the Solitaire URGO, and it was hard for me to access. I wasn't necessarily a super high performance sailor, but I just put my head down and tried, like you said, build my secondary skill set by working with the Irish Offshore Academy and Fourth Cape, got experience there, and then came back to Ireland and had a good strong team helping me find sponsorship, and then all of a sudden there we were on the start line. So it's about using your resources, but the thing that for me was just having that crystal clear goal the whole time. it affected every decision I made. Is this going to help me get to start on the Solitaire or not? And that's how I got there.
Yeah, well, and it's fantastic that you have that goal and that you've done everything within your powers to make it happen. So, there's a lot to be taken from that. And to the future, Joan, I mean, what's next? Where do you go from here?
Big plans, as always. I suppose my ultimate goal is to do the Vendee Globe. So the preferred option would be to do that in 2020. 2020 is coming up very soon. So if we don't do it in 2020, we'll try and do it in 2024. But I'm still very much all guns blazing to get a campaign together for 2020. Also, kind of on a parallel strand, I want to continue sailing in the Figaro class and do the Solitaire de Figaro again in 2018, just because it's such an excellent way of developing yourself as a solo sailor. And the learning that you get in those 4 weeks is just immense. And it's also really addictive. So I can't wait to get back Figaro racing. So the plan then for next year is to get my hands on a Figaro 3 and build a strong campaign again, hopefully with an Irish sponsor, and do the Figaro circuit next year. But at the same time, we'll be trying to build a strong IMOCA project for the Vendee Globe in 2020. And so that will mean trying to get to more of the qualifying races for the Vendee and build a strong sponsorship campaign there as well. So I've got quite a lot on.
It sounds like you've got some busy months or years ahead. Obviously, 2020 being a great goal to have for the Vendee, and like you said, it's not that far away. But you've certainly proved that you've got some willpower and some a real desire to get where you want to. So fingers crossed. I'm pretty sure you're going to be on that start line in 2020, and we'll be supporting and following you as much as we can. Well, Joan, I thank you very much for taking the time to join us today. It's been fantastic hearing about your Solitaire race, and we wish you all the best for the future.
Thanks very much, Abby. Yeah, it was lovely to talk to you too, and good luck with all your sailing in the future as well. I'm looking forward to seeing what happens next.
Conversations from the world of women's sports. This is Wisp Sports Radio.
And that concludes today's show. Thank you, Joan, for joining me, and thanks for listening. Please continue to follow the Magenta Project on our website and on social media. And to keep up to date on women's sport in general, not just sailing, check out the Wisp Sports online on social media. And join us again for another episode next month.